Hi, I'm Chance,
And I'm Sarah Catherine,
and this is Conservation Connection.
presented by Last Chance Endeavors.
We run a wildlife education nonprofit focused on connecting students to their environment.
Each week here on Conservation Connection, we do just that by introducing you to the groundbreaking science and conservation work that's happening every day around the country.
We talk to professionals in the world of conservation science and wildlife management and ask them about their career,
Their current projects,
their wild and crazy stories from the field,
and everything in between.
Join us each week to discover just how these dedicated people are working to protect our planet. All right, welcome to another episode of Conservation Connection. We're actually here in my hometown of San Antonio, Texas. We are at the SeaWorld Park to Planet weekend event, which is kind of a little showcase for SeaWorld's partners and the ways that the work they're doing out in the world is having a great impact for this planet. So we're sitting here across the table with Heidi Whitehead. She's the executive director of the Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to have you here. Thank you for making time for us this morning.
Absolutely.
We want to start with just kind of getting you to explain a little bit about the Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network.
Sure. So the Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network has been in existence since 1980. So we have a long history of responding to marine mammal strandings. So our mission is to be dedicated to the rescue, rehabilitation, education, and research of marine mammals here on the coastline. So primarily our activities involve responding to marine mammal strandings as they occur, also responding to injured marine mammals, and then conducting research on populations on the Texas coast. So we're a nonprofit organization. Texas is a big coastline, and we have about 3 employees for the whole coastline. So we have a huge volunteer base that supports us and one that we rely on. So based on our organization solely being nonprofit, we rely heavily on our partners, volunteers, donors, supporters, and everybody comes together to make it happen.
That's awesome. So I want to take a step back here and learn a little bit about how you got to be the executive director and kind of what your journey was to get to this place.
Absolutely. So I had always wanted to work with dolphins, but I actually ended up taking a little bit different path and started going to dental school.
Wow.
So huge jump there.
Yeah.
And was working in oral surgery and at one of the hospitals. And lo and behold, the Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network had a booth, an education booth for the hospital's Earth Day event. So I went down for my lunch hour and just was totally drawn to the booth and was super excited to find out that the Stranding Network existed and asked how I could get involved immediately and went through a volunteer training day. And basically, they just couldn't get rid of me after that point. So I started volunteering, all hours. So I had a full-time job. So I would volunteer midnight to 4 a.m. sometimes before I would go to work just to try to get that volunteer work in because I loved it so much. Then I started working in different capacities part-time and worked from office manager to education coordinator, whatever grant-funded positions would come available. I would really try to take advantage of that. And so that allowed me to work in all of the different aspects of the organization before I eventually became state coordinator, which was a big opportunity, but a lot of work as well to coordinate all of the stranding activity that occurs on the Texas coast. And then also after that, we kind of advanced to executive director, which is essentially state coordinator and just a glorified title, I guess. But yeah, it's been a great opportunity to be able to work with so many different people.
It's pretty impressive that you went from volunteering at from midnight to 4 a.m. all the way up to the very top level of executive director. And it just goes to show that when you're passionate about something and it's something that you really care about, any way you can be involved, you're being involved. You can really get some great results out of just being committed and being really persistent about it.
Right. And we work with, being located in Galveston and on the coast, there are different universities where there are a lot of marine biology programs and students that volunteer with us. And I'm always trying to impress upon them the importance of that volunteer work and really showing different organizations that you care enough to be able to spend your time to do that on your own and how much you can gain from that as well. And I feel like everything that I've put in, I've equally received back. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that persistence is definitely key, especially in a field like this. It kind of takes proving yourself a little before you can really climb that ladder and get to doing what you really want to do. But even volunteering, is just an awesome experience in itself, especially at marine mammal facilities and the stranding network.
And that's what I was going to say, especially in the marine mammal field. I mean, who doesn't love dolphins? Everybody loves dolphins, and if everybody could, they would work with them. But what people don't realize is that it's a lot of work.
Right.
A lot of really stinky, sweaty, hot, gross work to work with, taking care of these animals. As rewarding as it is, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. And it's for people who are really, really passionate about it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it's good for the students to get a taste of that. It's not all just playing with dolphins in a pool. When you're dealing with rescue and rehabilitation specifically, you're not dealing with healthy animals. They're sick. They're coming in. You deal with sometimes sad things. When you're dealing with euthanasia and trying to do what's best for the animal. So experiencing those things is a good part of pursuing a career in that field for sure.
And I want to go back to that, kind of talking about the dealing with euthanasia and that kind of stuff. You're not always dealing with the most fun, but y'all take that and you turn it back into your research and you find things through that. So can you run us through a little bit of that and how you use those situations to kind of help you in the future?
Yeah, so we look at every animal that comes in as an opportunity to help future animals that strand, like you said. And so it may be a situation where we have an animal come in that has a neurological condition that we may not have recognized right away. And we do see a lot of that, unfortunately, on the Texas coast, a lot of neurologic issues with dolphins and fluid on the brain and things like that. So over the years, with working with so many animals, we begin to recognize symptoms of those neurological problems, whether it be kind of bumping walls or, listing to one side or the other when they're swimming. And so by learning those symptoms and kind of being able to recognize them earlier in the process, we are able to do what I consider a very loving thing for the animal, and that's to not prolong suffering. And so we will make a decision earlier rather than dragging that out to perform euthanasia if we feel that that is in the best interest of the animal, since there is no treatment for these neurologic symptoms. And so that is something that I feel like we've come a long way with over the years. Even 15 years ago, we might have supported an animal that was listless in the pool for 6 weeks on end, when now we know that we need to be making decisions faster for the animal's sake and not just considering our own personal feelings and the fact that it's a hard thing to do. So that's something I think we've made a lot of progress with. But that being said, after these euthanasias, we do necropsies, and that's a tough thing to do too, to have to perform a necropsy on an animal that you've just spent, hours upon hours trying to get better and to support. But we do these necropsies, and it has really been eye-opening for us to actually see what's going on. So if you can see the lung infections that they were experiencing, or you can see the level of infection that they were dealing with, then that really helps us in assessing them when they are alive and helps future animals as well. It also can help us to see, hey, this animal was dealing with a lung infection and we didn't even know it. So maybe we need to regroup and look at those blood levels and see kind of what we were dealing with so that we can find that in other animals faster and be able to treat them.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing because with humans, we're at a level of medical care where we have hundreds and hundreds of years of written down information, and these are the symptoms we saw, this is the outcome, this is the prognosis, this is what happened. And we don't have that same kind of body of knowledge for other species of animals. And having groups that are being so proactive about not only caring for sick animals coming in, but maintaining that data and making it accessible so that next time you see it, you know what happened, or you're at least more aware of what's happening and you have a more appropriate way to respond. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work and a lot of record keeping to build that body of knowledge.
Right. We have pages and pages of data. So when animals are in rehab, they're under 24-hour watch by volunteers. So that's where those midnight shifts came in for me. 4-hour shifts around the clock. Someone is watching those dolphins, taking notes, taking respiration rates, writing notes on behavior. So we have thousands of pages of records that date back 40 years on animals that have come through. And I find myself even referring back now to cases 20 years ago that have helped me in seeing their behavior that was recorded. So those are very helpful. And then also in the samples, we archive samples that we collect in necropsy. So researchers come in from the outside and they're able to have a specific study project that they want to look at and pursue. So we can provide them the samples to look at, say, muscle tissue and, the level of oxygen that they're receiving, or look specifically at lungs and how they're inflating. So things like that are really a good opportunity to provide outside researchers.
So you're almost like a time capsule where a researcher can come in and say, hey, I know that this event was going on 15 years ago, and I'm looking to see if there was a connection between that and the health of the ecosystem in this area. What data do you have from this time frame that I can look at and see what links I can draw? And that's not really in the forefront of the public mind.
Right.
But that is such a powerful scientific tool to be able to look at today and yesterday. And then not only are you keeping what you have from yesterday, but you're looking at a lot today, so you know what's going to be happening tomorrow, right? You guys are doing a lot of population studies where you're looking to see what are the populations in the area so that you have that baseline data, which is so important when something happens in the future.
Exactly. And sometimes it may be hard in the day-to-day to lose sight of that. But I think seeing the progress that we've made and the scientific publications that are coming out of, this research that we've been able to provide and make available, and the publications that we're able to present, that you're contributing to the body of science and the knowledge that we're building for marine mammals that just wasn't there even 30, 40 years ago.
And like Chance was saying earlier, with people, we have all of this previous knowledge and, we can just take ourselves to the doctor if we're not feeling well. Marine mammals, not so much. So can you walk us through kind of what y'all have to go through with the organization to get these animals to somewhere you can take care of them? Because obviously something like a dolphin isn't super light. You can't just pick it up and walk it in.
Right.
So walk us through that a little, if you will.
Okay, yeah. So the call comes in. So we maintain a 24-hour hotline on the Texas coast. That's 1-800-9-MAMMAL. And so myself or two other staff man that 24 hours a day. So the call comes in, and then we have a team called the Critical Care Team of volunteers that have received specialized training. Some of them have been on the team for 20 years in marine mammal handling. And so we send out a group message on an app, let them know, hey, there's a dolphin on the beach. This is the location. Meet us in 15 minutes. So then we'll get to the site, load our equipment, get out to that animal. And it can take 6 to 12 people depending on the animal size. A bottlenose dolphin, most of what we see, they weigh 200 to 400 pounds full growth. And so you've got to be prepared for anything. We load them in a transport van using a specialized stretcher. And then when they get back to the pool or a rehab center, then we're able to put them in a pool that's variable depth. So we're able to support them at different stages of their rehab. If they require support and we have to walk them around, then we can do that. The first thing that we do is start offering fluids through tube feeding, which can consist of, with a full-grown dolphin, 6 people that need to hold the animal and a tuber and someone to pour the fluids. So if you're looking at doing that every 4 hours around the clock, say, then you're looking at needing at least 8 people every 4 hours to be there around the clock, as long as that animal needs tube feeding. So it's a very intense effort, especially in the critical stages of rehab, and something that we rely a lot on volunteers to help us complete. And then once we get through those critical stages, they become more stable. We do more assessments as far as blood work goes and looking for zoonotic diseases and to clear those. And then we are able to assess their behavior. Is the animal too young? Can they go back out into the wild? Obviously, our goal is always to get them back out and release back to the wild, but that's not always possible. And I think that's a limitation that maybe some don't understand kind of quite how that process works.
So 2 questions going off of that. What is a condition that might make an animal non-releasable, not able to go back out into its natural habitat? And once you've determined that an animal is non-releasable, what are the options? What are you able to do with that animal?
So first off, I should say that the decision is always made by National Marine Fisheries Service, which is the government agency that oversees marine mammals in the United States. And so we work under a permit under National Marine Fisheries Service for a stranding agreement. And so what we do is we collect the information, the behavioral data on the animal, the medical status, and we submit that to National Marine Fisheries. They then have a panel of experts that will review it, which consists of veterinarians and other behavioral experts. And they determine, is the animal too young? So that may be a situation where an animal, these dolphins typically stay with their moms till they're at least 2 years of age and learn the skills that they need to survive in the wild, how to feed on their own, how to catch fish. If they're younger than that, then typically they're deemed non-releasable because they are not able to show that they can survive on their own in the wild. They're not able to feed on their own. And so that would be one condition, was just age, really, that would prevent them from being released. Secondly, one that we see a lot is chronic illness. So an animal that may come in with a certain fungal infection that may require years of treatment with antifungals. That's something we've been seeing a lot recently. And other conditions that will require long-term medication. So those are really the two primaries that National Marine Fisheries usually makes them non-releasable as a result of. And once they make that non-release determination, then the government will send notifications out to facilities within the U.S. that are accredited and that they know could care for the animals, and then those facilities submit applications to the government to show how they can provide the needs that that specific animal has and the social needs that they have, and the government makes a decision as to where the best facility is for them. And without these facilities, these animals essentially wouldn't have anywhere to go and would not survive in the wild.
And I think that's a really key point, is that so often people who love animals and have a really big heart for animals see any animal in human care and they're concerned about it. They have this sense that, an animal should be free and be able to be out in its natural environment. And the truth is that's not always what's best for an animal. A lot of times there's animals that are simply unable to survive out in the wild, and the wild is wild. It is a very cruel and harsh place sometimes. And very often when you're dealing with animals that have come through rehab scenarios, it's not uncommon to see an animal that would not make it. And releasing it would be basically the worst thing you could do for that animal, because it's going to put it in a situation where it's going to slowly and very painfully end its life, not be able to survive out in the wild.
Yeah, and as caretakers, we obviously want the best for that animal. And so you may see and begin to understand the different social complexes that, dolphin groups have and why those are so important. And I think some people have made comments of, well, why can't you just teach the dolphin to eat a fish, but they rely heavily on their moms to do that and learn over time. And there's no way for us to really replicate that. And when you begin to see young dolphins sharing their food with other live fish in the pool, or scared of the live fish that are swimming after them, that their chances of survival in the wild are very slim. And so we want the best for them and to go where they will receive the best care possible.
And that's the other side of the coin, is that, these animals are not being released to under-equipped facilities. Every animal that is deemed non-releasable is going to an accredited facility that has the ability to provide the best care possible for this animal for the rest of its life, which is not insignificant. I mean, we're talking decades here if it's a young animal.
Yeah.
So they're going to really good places.
Yeah, and we've seen that firsthand. I mean, just being here at SeaWorld yesterday, I had the opportunity to see a couple of our dolphins that have come here recently, because honestly, they had nowhere else to go. No other facility would accept them. And so SeaWorld San Antonio has really stepped up, and we have a young calf that came here that was 6 months old when he stranded, and we weaned him, and he's doing amazing. They call him the little social butterfly here. His name is Zip. And then we have another animal that was in rehab with us for 14 months that I saw her yesterday, and she's just one of the group now. And actually one of our previous rescues from the 90s named Maddie is here. And I learned yesterday that she's taken this new stranding under her wing, and they're best buds. So
that's so great.
There's nothing better really than to see that, and to have experienced animals that we rescued 25 years ago still here and thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to dive a little deeper into y'all's partnership with SeaWorld. Obviously we're here for the Park to Planet weekend. And I know that their partnership with Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network has kind of been fundamental to y'all being able to do a lot that y'all do currently. So if you could kind of give us an overview of when that started and how you've seen that partnership grow.
Yeah, well, as far as the partnership goes in an informal capacity, we have been working with SeaWorld since the beginning. So when it came to veterinary expertise, ever since I have been here, they have been working so hard at coming down to do different diagnostics. They have further diagnostic capabilities than we have at our facilities. So whether it's coming down to do bronchoscopies or x-rays and things like that are necessary to learn what the animal needs as far as treatment goes. And then several years ago, we formalized a partnership so that we could really start to move forward in advancing the stranding network's ability to provide care for more animals. And so one way that they've been able to do that is continuing the veterinary capacity and the medical supplies, but then also they send staff down. So we just had a live dolphin strand last month, and we know it's going to be an intense time, like I talked about, where you're going to need handlers, around the clock. So they immediately, within several hours, mobilized some staff, some animal care staff to come down. They spent nearly a week there with us. So that takes so much pressure off of us in those early hours to know that you've got people that are coming down and experienced and know what they're doing with these dolphins, and being able to communicate the veterinary aspect with them. So that's been invaluable to us. In addition to that, they've also been helping us to reach new audiences, like today, being here in the park and being able to spread our message about who we are and what we do. So that's been wonderful to reach new audiences. And then also through some monetary support for us to be able to continue our work.
People don't really think about it when you see dolphins, but they eat a lot.
Right.
A 200 to 400 pound animal is eating anywhere from like 15 to 25 pounds of restaurant grade fish a day. And if you've got more than one dolphin, or even if you have only one dolphin, that is a lot of fish. And it takes a lot of money to provide really high quality care for these animals. And so having somebody like SeaWorld that can provide that sort of financial support to a rescue organization is huge, having, taking care of those needs.
Absolutely. And we've seen animals that have, I mentioned the fungal issue. So antifungal medications are extremely expensive. And we've seen them on those medications for months on end, and SeaWorld's been able to donate those medications to us, which has been really invaluable.
And I think I remember when Chance and I actually came to San Antonio right as like Hurricane Harvey was hitting. And we came to visit the park, and I remember our connection here just saying like, oh yeah, like we have some people going down to help the Marine Mammal Stranding Network, and kind of mobilizing that like preemptively as well, because the hurricane wasn't even here yet and everyone was kind of scattering and getting things ready. So even from the outside looking in, like we can see how much of a huge partnership it is.
Absolutely, yeah. And then just after Harvey, we had a couple of dolphins washed out of habitat. So people might not think about dolphins after hurricanes getting in places where they shouldn't be further inland. So they were able to come out and help us to be able to capture those animals and release them back out into the wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change gears a little bit here.
Okay.
As somebody who has spent a lot of time around rescues and working with stranded animals, do you have like a favorite dramatic dolphin rescue story?
Oh, one of my favorites, I would say in the moment, it was quite stressful, but it was actually early on. This was back like in 2005. It was after Hurricane Katrina had hit, and then Hurricane Rita almost immediately after that in Louisiana. And so we had evacuated our area in Houston and the Galveston area as well for Hurricane Rita. It was a tough time for everybody. And we got a report of a dolphin in a roadside ditch in Cameron, Louisiana. So that area was really just had sustained so much damage from the hurricane. There was really nothing left in that area. The Today Show off of NBC had flown in to do some interviews, and during their interview that they were conducting, a dolphin popped up in the ditch behind them. So he, of course, the gentleman there called us, and he was in a panic, saying this dolphin is not going to make it overnight. You guys need to get out immediately. Of course, resources were limited, access to fuel, but we were able to drive over to Louisiana with our critical care team. We spent all day on a boat trying to access this animal because the roadways were closed. we weren't able to access it. So it was very disappointing and disheartening getting home for the team, thinking that the animal wouldn't make it. But we were able to arrange with the Coast Guard to fly us out in a helicopter the next day. So we didn't know what we were going to find, but they landed the helicopter right there on the road. The Dolphin was there. The National Guard came in their Black Hawk and landed.
Wow.
I mean, it was just these, massive teams coming out and coming together for this dolphin that was in the ditch. And the National Guard got in their full uniform to help us. And as did the Coast Guard, we get in this ditch, capture this dolphin by hand. And we had looked to see if it was about 4 miles inland that this dolphin was in this ditch. And I had scouted the area to see if there's any way we could drive it to the beach, and we couldn't. So I had gotten in touch with the Coast Guard helicopter crew, and I said, there's no way we can get this dolphin back unless we put it in your helicopter, and his eyes get huge, like, oh boy, what are we dealing with here? I wasn't expecting that. We were just supposed to get you to the dolphin. But they were awesome. They unloaded all their gear in the chopper. We went through like a little mock rescue with me and the stretcher with the guys there. And we were able to get this dolphin. He was huge. It was a huge male that came out. We were able to angle him in the chopper so that he could fit with the door closed. Got him in, airlifted him down to the beach. The chopper landed on the beach, and we released him. And within minutes, he was with other dolphins right off the shore there. So that was an incredible experience, a once in a lifetime. It was just amazing to me to see the resources and the people that came together for a dolphin.
I mean, that sounds like a feature film. Like The Dolphin in the Ditch coming this summer.
I think they did cover it on the Weather Channel Storm Stories. I think they did cover that.
I'm going to have to see if I can find like a link to that.
Yeah,
That's
I was going to say, we'll look that up. So if anyone wants to get involved with Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network, where could they go? Is there an online resource, or should they just come see you guys, or do you do tours at all?
We do open up tours when we don't have animals in rehab. So we offer facility tours, but the best way to learn about all of our opportunities is on our website, which is dolphinrescue.org. They can visit that, as well as our Facebook page, which is Texas Marine Mammal Stranding Network. And we post all of our opportunities that come up, the many different ways that you can support us. There's a volunteer application online if you live nearby, and we do a volunteer training to get you kind of prepped to help out in all aspects of the organization.
Awesome. So if you guys are listening right now, scroll down to the show notes. We're going to put those links right there so you guys can click on them, find it right from within the podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you for spreading the word and doing all you do for conservation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conservation Connection.
If you enjoyed our podcast, go ahead and subscribe to make sure you catch every episode that we post.
We would love to hear from you. If you want to reach out to us, go to our website, lastchanceendeavors.com/contact, and shoot us an email.
If you're a teacher and you'd like to use this episode in your classroom, get in touch with us.
We'll provide you with state and national standard tie-ins and additional materials to help you guide a class discussion.
Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week.